So today I'm standing in front of the house in London of one of the greatest poets of the 20th century, also one of the most controversial. I'm talking about this guy here, Ezra Pound, American poet who settled first in London and then later in Paris. And he was a central character in the development of modernist poetry. In London, he was hanging out with people like T.S. Eliot and Ford Madox Ford, and he was really not just a poet, but he was also a shaper and editor of fellow writers and poets, including with T.S. Eliot. He was the editor of his seminal poem, The Wasteland, where apparently Ezra Pound cut out like 50% of the original poem, and the poem is dedicated to him in the introduction by T.S. Eliot, Il miglior fabbro, the better craftsman. So he was destined for a great literary destiny, a great trajectory. Then he went to Paris, and in Paris he was hanging out with James Joyce and Hemingway and all these like kind of cool guys from the 1920s in Paris. And so everything was going to be great. He was going to be this great figure of 20th century literature. But then shit started getting a little dark. And he started getting radicalized after the First World War with these kind of weird, dubious economic theories and these weird populist politicians. And he gradually started sliding towards fascism. And his writings became increasingly anti-Semitic and horrible. And he moved to Italy in 1924, probably attracted by Mussolini's fascist regime there. And he started really kind of talking up this regime and then talking up the Nazis in Germany and saying that, this is really the model regime for the future of humanity. And things got really bad. And during the war, he was in Italy. He was making anti-Semitic, fascist, pro-Nazi broadcasts. And so he got quite high up on the list of people that the US wanted to capture at the end of the war, and capture him they did. And he was kept in a psychiatric hospital for many years, and eventually he died in the early 70s. His seminal work is called The Cantos. It's a collection of 100+ beautiful poems. He was a great craftsman, a great poet. But unfortunately, there is that eternal stain of his political allegiances. So it's a typical case of the artist versus the person, and there's an eternal debate as to whether or not we're allowed to rehabilitate Ezra Pound, but we can't avoid that he's an indispensable figure of 20th century literature.